Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Manuela Newman, and I have a question for Gail, if possible. So I was wondering, Gail, what feedback have you had from your model?
As we've walked the model around, we have had buy-in from everybody that we've talked to about it. In advance of our first steering committee meeting, we recruited industry CEOs to sit at the same table with hospital sector CEOs, and we had so much demand, we had to create a rotating seat so that a different industry CEO can come to each of the meetings.
Who's next? Barry?
Thanks. Frederica.
Yes.
I think I heard you say that you wanted the ministry to be involved earlier in the cycle of evaluation. So the way that new devices come into Canada is Health Canada, and full disclosure, I'm a member of the Health Canada Evaluation Committee for new cardiovascular devices, makes a decision and says, yes, you can use this technology. And then it goes to the provinces to say, okay, are you going to pay for this? And there's this gap that extends multiple years. How do you suggest that the Government of Ontario be involved in being able to address and shorten that gap so that providers can roll out and evaluate new technologies faster?
It's a great question, and that's one of the things that I'd love to have further dialogue on. I don't know that I have answers. What I have is a perspective from somebody who's receiving a lot of these, policy recommendations a little late in the game. So one of the things that in some of the work we've been doing with Bill's team is to understand, can we get engaged appropriately with providers and industry in the pre-market phase? And if so, what would that look like? Certainly, what I'm seeing at OTAC typically works post-market. So something is approved by Health Canada, it's out there, it's becoming diffused, there are diffusion pressures. And that is typically when something comes to OTAC because there's a funding barrier of some kind, right? If there's no funding barrier, people are just adopting that technology and it doesn't come to us through this channel. So noting that, it's just a little late in the game. If one thing I've noted is more recently OTAC is looking at should they be actually assessing things pre-market, so should they be looking at technologies that have not yet gone through Health Canada approval? It's an interesting question. It would mean that we'd then be able to engage with a positive recommendation, but a pre-market, a pre-Health Canada situation. We'd likely be able to engage with a couple of early adopters. We might be able to work with an OBIO network to think about a payment with or a coverage with evidence model. It would allow us to get ahead of the diffusion curve. The challenge for us is when there's a technology that's out there that's diffused, and if the evidence is then not there, how do we put you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? Or it's very challenging to put the genie back in the bottle.
So one of the things we really have to do better at the ministry, frankly, when it comes to non-biopharmaceutical health technologies and processes is engage with industry. And we've come a long way, even the 2 years that I've been in this. Honestly, early on, I would hear people dogmatically say from the ministry, we quote unquote won't engage with industry. And my short line on that was, it might have been okay, I guess, if you're talking about big bad pharma. I spent a decade with big bad pharma. But industry, when it comes to non-biopharmaceutical technologies in health, as often as not are two researchers or physicians and a laptop. And the methods of action, the types of technology, the product cycles are so much shorter. Everything is so different that if we want a chance at all to make optimal investments in new innovative health technologies and processes, we've got to engage with industry earlier and more frequently, and that's one of the things we're taking on. So can I ask one last thing of our panels? I'll take 3 minutes. So you get 1 minute each. If you could do one thing, so you represent the 3 areas of this system. You know the challenge. You kind of have all talked to me over the years about how we can all work together better. If you could do one thing to unplug the bottom of that funnel and improve our ability to adopt and diffuse innovation, what would it be? And you got 1 minute each. Peter, do you want to go first?
Sure. Maybe what I can do is just pose my ideas in terms of thought questions. Bill, you said at the very beginning, and I do agree with you, that our single-payer system, our $54 billion enterprise, does create a massive opportunity for competitive advantage. The point I want to raise, and I could build a strong argument to support that, to help you. But the
Feel like
point I
there's a
want to
but
raise
coming.
on the other side of the ledger for thought and consideration is, does our resource-constrained, capital-starved system, is that a fundamental driver for risk aversion?
Yeah.
And that's something that we can really think about over time. The second question that I would ask for thought is, does our publicly funded, publicly administered private practice of medicine, is that an advantage or a disadvantage for innovation?
Yeah. Good questions. Gail, 60
Um,
seconds.
Okay, so I'll answer Peter's question. It's an advantage from my perspective. To unplug the funnel, I think changing the culture and creating an innovation-friendly health delivery system will go a long way to unplugging the funnel, giving companies an opportunity to work with health service providers earlier, so that their technologies can be evaluated, vetted, and scaled. I think changing the culture is necessary to making that happen. The model that we're proposing is, intended to be an opt-in model, so we can start with the coalition of the willing and build it out from there. I think that's a contribution to the effort.
Yeah. Frederica.
I'm going to go all a bit geeky on this one, but I think the key infrastructure for us, two pieces I would say from my perspective. One is the infrastructure and platform for measuring in a comparative way, both within the province and internationally, outcomes that are important to patients across a number of clinical domains of care or services, irrespective of care setting. So, I frankly don't care whether a service is happening in a hospital or in the community. I want to understand that the outcomes that we wanted to achieve for our patient were achieved. And I think we need to figure out the way, the platform, to have that data and have that data available to clinicians, the providers in our system, and available to payers in our system. And frankly, available to patients in our system.
Patients too, yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much to our panelists. Thanks to you. Back to David.